I never thought I'd be telling you a story like this. Honestly, I've always been the type to brush off creepy stuff, just your typical skeptic. But after what happened to me a few months ago, I've had a really hard time shaking it. It's one of those things that sticks with you, even when you try to forget. I don't know if I believe in ghosts, or whatever you want to call it, but what I went through, there's no other explanation for it. It started on a regular Tuesday. Well, as regular as any Tuesday could be for me. I was working late, as usual. You know how it is when you're just trying to get stuff done, minding your business, and everything's fine until it isn't. Anyway, like I said, it started on a Tuesday night. I was alone, getting some work done in my tiny living room. Nothing unusual. It was about 10:30 p.m., and I could hear a storm picking up outside, rain hitting the windows, wind howling through the cracks in the walls. That kind of night, you know? Then I heard it. At first I thought it was just the wind or maybe the sound of the building settling. But no, this was something different. There was this knocking. Light, almost hesitant. It was coming from the hallway outside my apartment door. You know, the kind of knocking where you're not sure if someone's there or if you're just imagining it. I went to the door, opened it just a crack, but nobody was there. Weird, right? I figured maybe it was some prankster or a neighbor messing with me, but that was it. I shrugged it off and went back to my work. But then it happened again. Only this time, it wasn't just a knock. It was like dragging. Like something heavy was being scraped across the floor. That sound, it was unmistakable, like nails on a chalkboard, but much, much worse. I froze. You know that feeling when you know something's wrong, but you can't figure out what. Yeah, that was me right then. The thing is, the hallway outside my door, it's a dead end. There are no other apartments beyond mine, no exit, just a tiny window at the very end of it. So I stood there, staring out at that empty hallway, and I tried to tell myself it was nothing. But then, I saw it. A shadow, at the very end of the hallway. It was just a brief flash, but I could make out the outline of someone, or something. It didn't move like a person, though. It was slow, almost deliberate, like it was aware I was watching. I didn't think. I just slammed the door shut, locked it, and backed away, heart pounding. But then I heard it again. The dragging. Closer this time. Whatever it was making its way down the hallway toward me. I swear I could feel my blood turn cold. I sat there in the living room for what felt like hours, just listening. The storm outside had quieted down, and the only sound in the apartment was that dragging noise. It stopped right outside my door. And then, silence. I don't know how long I waited there. I just kept staring at the door, praying it would end. When I finally worked up the courage to check, I opened the door, but the hallway was empty. The kind of empty that makes your skin crawl. No shadows, no sounds, nothing. But there, on the floor in front of my door, was a smear of something dark. Not just dust or dirt. It was sticky, almost like something had been dragged across the floor, leaving behind a trail. I cleaned it up, of course. At least I tried to. But no matter how hard I scrubbed, it wouldn't come off. It was like the stain was just there. Permanent. I couldn't sleep that night. I spent hours pacing, trying to convince myself it was just my imagination, or the stress of work getting to me. But deep down, I knew something had happened, something I couldn't explain. The next day, I talked to my neighbor. Let's call her Mrs. Porter. She's been living in the building for decades, so I figured she might know something. She looked at me like I was crazy when I asked if anything weird had happened in the building. But then, just as I was about to leave, she said something that made my stomach drop. You know, she said, they say the building's got a history. Something happened years ago, but it's not something people talk about. People vanish around here, Not often, but enough that they make you wonder. I asked her to elaborate, but she just shook her head and walked away. That's when I started digging. Turns out the building was built back in the 1920s, and there were rumors of a woman who had lived there, someone who'd gone missing without a trace. No one knew what happened to her, but there were whispers of strange things happening in the building ever since. I started to think maybe it was her, the shadow, the dragging. I don't know how, but I felt like whatever it was tied to me now. That's when the dreams started. At first, they were just flashes, little things. A woman's face, pale and twisted, staring at me from the corner of my room. But then, they got worse. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, unable to move, feeling that same coldness that had crept into my bones. And I'd hear it again, the dragging. But this time, it wasn't in the hallway. It was in my room, right next to my bed. I couldn't take it anymore. I packed up and moved out within the week. I couldn't stay there. Not with that thing, or whatever it was, still lingering. But I can't shake the feeling that it's still following me. You know what the worst part is? I still hear the dragging sometimes, late at night. When I'm trying to fall asleep, I know it's not real. Or at least, I try to tell myself that. But then again, I never really thought I'd be telling you a story like this. Maybe it's just in my head. But maybe, just maybe, it's still out there.